The night sky stretched endlessly over the desert, quiet and deceptive. From above, everything looked calm, almost peaceful. But the soldiers inside the helicopter knew better. War never looked like war from a distance. Inside the dimly lit cabin, Staff Sergeant Emily Carter sat near the open side door, her gloved hands resting on her rifle. The wind howled past them, sharp and cold, slicing through the silence. Red lights flickered across the faces of the team, each one focused, each one ready. No one spoke. They didn't need to. This wasn't their first mission. But something about this one felt different. Emily glanced across at her team, 8 soldiers, hand-picked for a high-risk operation. The objective was simple on paper: extract a downed pilot from hostile territory and return safely. Simple. It was always simple before everything went wrong. She adjusted her headset as the pilot's voice came through. 2 minutes to drop zone. Emily exhaled slowly, steadying her heartbeat. Her eyes moved to the darkness outside. Nothing but shadows, endless, silent shadows. Then the radio crackled. Static. Emily frowned. Say again? No response. The co-pilot tapped his controls. We're getting interference. A small detail, but in war, small details got people killed. Emily's grip tightened on her rifle. Stay sharp, she said firmly. The soldiers nodded. The helicopter pushed forward, cutting through the night. The sound of the blades was loud, but not loud enough to drown out the growing tension. Then, a sharp beep echoed through the cockpit. Once, twice, then rapidly. Wait, the pilot muttered. Emily's eyes snapped forward. What is it? Before anyone could answer, missile lock! Time froze. Then everything exploded into chaos. Flares! Flares! The co-pilot shouted. The helicopter jerked violently as countermeasures launched into the air, bright bursts of light scattering into the darkness. The aircraft swerved hard to the side, engines roaring as the pilot tried to evade. Emily grabbed onto the seat as the entire cabin tilted. Hold on! Someone yelled. A streak of fire cut through the sky behind them. Too fast. Too close. Boom! The impact hit like a hammer from the sky. The helicopter shook violently, alarms screaming from every direction. Sparks burst from the control panels. Smoke filled the cabin. We've been hit, the pilot shouted. The aircraft began to spiral, uncontrollably. Emily's world flipped sideways as gravity seemed to disappear. Her body slammed against the wall. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she ignored it. Brace! Brace! She yelled. The ground rushed toward them, faster, faster. Then, crash. The explosion tore through the desert like thunder. For a moment, there was nothing. No sound, no movement, just darkness. Emily's eyes snapped open. A high-pitched ringing filled her ears. Her vision blurred, shapes barely forming through the smoke and flickering flames around her. She couldn't breathe. The air was thick, burning her lungs. She coughed violently, forcing herself to move. Move, move, she whispered to herself. Pain shot through her body as she pushed up from the wreckage. Her hands trembled, but she forced them steady. Training, instinct, survival. The helicopter was destroyed, torn apart, metal twisted like paper. Fire spread quickly, consuming what remained. Status! Emily shouted, her voice rough. No answer. Her heart pounded harder. Report in! A groan came from her left. I'm here. She turned quickly, rushing toward the voice. One of her soldiers was pinned under debris, blood running down his forehead. Emily dropped beside him. Stay with me. She pushed the metal aside with all her strength, ignoring the heat burning through her gloves. Finally, she pulled him free. Can you move? Yeah, I think so. Good. Stay close. Another voice called out. Then another. Emily counted. 1, 2, 3. Only 3. Her chest tightened. 5 were missing. Gone. There was no time to process it. The fire was spreading too fast. "Everyone up! We need to move now!" Emily commanded. The survivors stumbled forward, injured but alive. They grabbed what weapons and supplies they could from the wreckage. Then, Emily froze. Her head tilted slightly, listening. At first, she heard nothing. Then, faintly, engines. Distant, but getting louder. Headlights appeared on the horizon. Her blood ran cold. Enemy patrol. They had seen the crash. "Move!" she hissed urgently. The team rushed away from the wreckage, disappearing into the shadows, just as the first vehicles approached. Moments later, voices echoed through the night, foreign, sharp, alert. Flashlights cut through the darkness, scanning the crash site. Emily and her team hid behind broken ruins, barely breathing. One wrong move, and it was over. She glanced at her team. One was clutching his side, bleeding badly. Another was limping. They weren't ready for a fight. Not like this. Not here. Emily looked back toward the burning wreckage. Their only way out, gone. Their communication, gone. Backup, unknown. For the first time since the crash, reality hit her. They were deep inside enemy territory, surrounded, outnumbered, and completely alone. The sound of boots crunching closer made her grip her rifle tighter. A flashlight beam passed just inches from her face. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Seconds felt like hours. Finally, the light moved on, but the danger didn't. Emily leaned closer to her team, her voice barely a whisper. "We move when I say. Stay low, stay silent." They nodded. Fear was in their eyes, but also trust. Emily took a slow breath, forcing her mind to focus. This mission had changed. This wasn't about rescue anymore. This was about survival. She glanced once more at the enemy forces surrounding the crash site, then into the darkness ahead. Unknown, dangerous, but their only chance. She wasn't leading a mission anymore. She was leading a fight to stay alive. "Stop!" The voice cut through the night like a blade. Emily's heart slammed against her chest, but her body reacted faster than fear. "Run!" she whispered sharply. Gunfire erupted instantly. Bullets tore through the ruins, shattering stone and sending dust into the air. Sparks flew as rounds ricocheted off metal debris. Emily grabbed the injured soldier by his vest and pulled him forward. "Move! Move!" Her team stumbled through the darkness, adrenaline pushing their bodies past the pain. Behind them, enemy soldiers shouted orders, their voices growing louder, closer. They were being hunted. Emily ducked behind a crumbling wall, raising her rifle. She took a breath, steady, controlled, then leaned out and fired. 2 quick shots, precise. An enemy soldier dropped. "Keep going," she ordered. The others pushed ahead, disappearing into a narrow alley between shattered buildings. Emily followed, covering their retreat, her movements sharp and calculated. But the enemy wasn't slowing down. Flashlights cut through the darkness, boots pounded against the ground. More vehicles arrived, their engines roaring like predators closing in. Emily knew what that meant. Reinforcements. They didn't just want to find survivors, they wanted to eliminate them. The alley opened into a cluster of destroyed structures, remnants of what once might have been homes. Now it was nothing but broken walls and shadows. "Inside," Emily whispered. They slipped into one of the ruins, collapsing behind cover. For a moment, silence. Only their breathing filled the air, heavy, uneven, terrified. Emily quickly scanned her team. The first soldier, bleeding heavily from his side. The wound was bad. The second, limping, barely able to stand. And the third, he looked at her, eyes wide. "We're not making it out of this, are we?" Emily didn't answer immediately. She couldn't lie, but she also couldn't let them break. "We are," she said firmly, "but only if we stay focused." She tore a piece of cloth and pressed it against the wounded soldier's side. He groaned in pain, but she held it tight. "Stay with me," she said. He nodded weakly. Outside, voices echoed again, closer now, They were sweeping the area, room by room, street by street. Emily's mind raced. No communication, no extraction point, no backup. They were ghosts behind enemy lines, and ghosts didn't survive long. A sudden crunch of debris outside froze them all. Emily raised her hand. Silent signal. Don't move. Don't breathe. Footsteps approached. Slow, careful. A shadow appeared in the doorway. An enemy soldier stepped inside, his rifle raised, flashlight scanning the room. The beam moved across the walls, across the floor. Closer, closer. Emily's finger tightened on the trigger. Not yet. Not yet. The light passed over her teammate's boot. The soldier paused. He saw it. His weapon began to rise. Bang. Emily fired first. The shot echoed like thunder in the confined space. The soldier dropped instantly, but the silence was shattered. Contact! Voices shouted outside. Gunfire erupted again. Bullets ripped through the walls, tearing chunks of concrete apart. Dust filled the air, choking and blinding. Go! Emily shouted. They burst out the back of the building, running blindly into the darkness. Gunfire followed them, closer, relentless. One of the soldiers cried out as a bullet grazed his arm. Keep moving, Emily yelled. They turned into another narrow path, then another, twisting through the ruins like a maze. But the enemy knew the terrain, and they were closing in. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed behind them. Emily turned just in time to see it happen. One of her teammates, the one already injured, stumbled. Before he could recover, two enemy soldiers lunged from the shadows. They grabbed him. No! Emily shouted, spinning around. She raised her rifle, but there were too many. More soldiers emerged, weapons aimed. She fired once, twice, but it wasn't enough. Her teammate was dragged away, struggling, shouting, "Emily!" The sound cut through her like a knife. Her other teammate grabbed her arm. "We have to go." For a split second, she hesitated. Every instinct told her to fight, to go back, to save him. But logic screamed louder. If she stayed, they would all die. Her jaw clenched. "Fall back," she ordered, her voice tight with anger. They ran. Faster than before. Harder. But something had changed. They weren't just escaping anymore. They were leaving someone behind. Minutes later, they finally stopped, hidden beneath a collapsed structure, barely shielded from the outside. Silence returned. But it wasn't relief. It was heavy, crushing. Her remaining teammate leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "We couldn't do anything." Emily didn't respond. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. She replayed the moment again and again, the look in his eyes, the way he called her name. She had seen that look before. Soldiers who knew they weren't coming back. "We have to move before they find us again," the soldier said quietly. Emily looked up. Her eyes were different now, colder, focused. "No," she said. He frowned. "What?" "We're not leaving him." The soldier stared at her, disbelief clear on his face. "Emily, that's suicide. We barely made it alive." She stepped closer, her voice low but unshakable. "He's still alive." "You don't know that." "I do." Her silence said the rest. She wasn't guessing. She was deciding. The soldier shook his head. "Even if he is, there's no way we get him back, not with what we have." Emily looked out into the darkness. Enemy territory, heavily guarded, no support, no second chances. Every logical thought pointed to one answer: leave, survive. But that wasn't who she was. She turned back to him. "Then I go alone." "What?" "You stay here, stay hidden. If I don't come back, you move at first light." "That's insane." "Maybe," she said quietly. Then she picked up her rifle, checked her ammo, adjusted her gear. Every movement calm, deliberate, final. Her teammate grabbed her arm. "You're not seriously doing this?" Emily looked at him one last time. "He's one of us." That was all she said, because that's all that mattered. She stepped into the darkness, alone. No backup, no guarantee of survival, only one mission now. Bring him back, or don't come back at all. The floodlights cut through the darkness like blades. Emily froze instantly, dropping low behind a pile of shattered concrete. The harsh white beams swept slowly across the terrain ahead, illuminating the outlines of a heavily guarded compound. So this was it, the place where they had taken him. Her heartbeat slowed, not from calm, but from control. Every emotion, fear, anger, doubt, was pushed down, locked away. Only focus remained. She studied the base from the shadows. Guard towers on both sides, patrol units moving in patterns, vehicles parked near the entrance, and at least a dozen soldiers visible, probably more inside. This wasn't just a temporary holding point. It was a trap waiting to close. Emily exhaled quietly. Think, she whispered to herself. Charging in wasn't an option. That would be suicide. She needed precision, timing, and a little bit of luck. Minutes passed as she observed. The patrols moved in predictable routes. 2 guards passed the same corner every 40 seconds. A blind spot formed briefly near the outer fence. That was her opening. Emily adjusted her grip on her rifle and moved. Fast, silent. She slipped from cover to cover, her boots barely making a sound against the ground. Every step was calculated, every movement controlled. One mistake, and it was over. She reached the outer fence and crouched low. 2 guards approached. 40 seconds. 30. 20. Her breathing slowed. 10. The guards turned the corner. Emily moved. In one swift motion, she slipped through the blind spot, hugging the shadows along the inner perimeter. No alarms, no sound. She was inside. The air felt heavier now. Danger pressed in from every direction. Emily kept low, moving along the edges of the compound. Voices echoed nearby. Soldiers talking, laughing, unaware of what was moving among them. A ghost in the dark. She spotted her first target. A lone guard standing near a storage area, his rifle slung loosely over his shoulder. Emily crept closer, her steps silent. Closer, closer. In one swift motion, she struck. Her hand covered his mouth as she pulled him back into the shadows. A quick, precise movement, and he went still. No noise, no trace. She lowered him gently to the ground. 1 down, many more to go. Emily moved deeper into the base. Her eyes scanned everything, doors, windows, pathways. Then she saw it. A small building near the center, heavily guarded. 2 soldiers at the entrance, more patrolling nearby. That had to be it. She crouched behind a stack of crates, analyzing the situation. Too many guards for a direct approach. She needed a distraction. Her eyes shifted toward a row of fuel barrels stacked near a vehicle. Risky, but it could work. She pulled a small device from her gear, timed explosive, set it, placed it carefully. Then she slipped back into the shadows. Seconds later, boom. The explosion tore through the silence, flames erupting into the night sky. Instant chaos. Explosion! Move! Move! Guards rushed toward the blast, shouting orders, leaving their positions. Exactly what she needed. Emily didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward the building. The 2 guards at the entrance turned briefly toward the explosion. That was enough. 2 suppressed shots. Both dropped instantly. Emily reached the door and slipped inside. The air inside was cold. Dim lights flickered overhead. And there, at the far end of the room, she saw him. Her teammate, tied to a chair, bruised, barely conscious. Relief hit her like a wave, but she forced herself to stay focused. "Hey, hey," she whispered, rushing to him. His eyes slowly opened. "Emily?" he muttered weakly. "Yeah, I've got you." She cut the restraints quickly, supporting him as he slumped forward. "You shouldn't have come," he said, barely able to speak. Emily gave a faint, determined look. "Yeah, I get that a lot." For a brief second, everything felt still, like they might actually make it out. Then, alarms blared. Red lights flooded the room. Emily's head snapped up. No, 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 no. A voice echoed outside. Intruder inside the base! Her time was up. Can you walk? She asked quickly. I'll try. Try harder. She pulled his arm over his shoulder, lifting him up. Gunfire erupted outside. They knew. Emily moved toward the exit, but the moment she opened the door, bullets rained in. She slammed it shut just in time. They're waiting, her teammate whispered. Emily's mind raced. Front exit, blocked. Back exit. She scanned the room. There, a small window on the side. Not ideal, but it was something. Hold on, she said. She fired a burst through the door, forcing the enemies back for a split second. Then she moved fast, dragging her teammate toward the window. Glass shattered as she broke it open. Go, she urged. He struggled through, falling hard on the other side. Emily followed immediately. The moment she hit the ground, gunfire erupted again. They were surrounded from every direction. Move, she shouted. They ran. Or at least she ran, dragging him with her. Bullets tore through the ground around them. Lights scanned wildly. Soldiers shouted, closing in fast. Emily fired back while moving, her shots precise, controlled. But there were too many. Way too many. They reached the edge of the compound, almost out. Almost. Then a vehicle screeched in front of them, blocking the path. More soldiers jumped out, weapons raised. Emily skidded to a stop, pulling her teammate behind cover. Her chest heaved. Her ammo was running low. Her body was reaching its limit. And the enemy? Still coming. From every side. She looked around. No clear path. No escape. Just enemies closing in. Her teammate looked at her, fear in his eyes. Emily. She didn't respond. Her grip tightened on her weapon. Her breathing slowed again. Controlled. Focused. If this was it, she wasn't going down without a fight. She stepped out from cover and opened fire. Gunfire exploded into the night as Emily stepped out from cover. Her rifle kicked against her shoulder. Controlled bursts, precise shots. One enemy dropped, then another. But for every soldier that fell, 2 more took his place. They were everywhere. Shadows moving, lights flashing, voices shouting. Surround them! Don't let them escape! Emily ducked back behind the vehicle as bullets slammed into the metal, sparks flying inches from her face. Her ears rang from the constant noise, but her focus never broke. She glanced at her teammate. He was barely conscious now, slumped against the wheel, blood soaking through his uniform. Stay with me, she said, grabbing his vest. His eyes flickered open. You made it back. Of course I did, she replied, forcing a faint smirk. You still owe me a drink. A weak breath of laughter escaped him. Then he winced in pain. Emily's expression hardened again. This wasn't over. Not yet. She peeked around the edge of the vehicle. Too many enemies. Closing in. They were tightening the circle, slowly, carefully, like hunters who knew their prey was trapped. Her ammo count flashed through her mind. Low. Too low. She needed a way out. Fast. Then she heard it. Faint at first, almost lost beneath the chaos. A distant thumping sound. Her eyes lifted toward the dark sky. Helicopters. Far away, but coming closer. Hope. But hope wouldn't keep them alive long enough. Emily reached into her gear and pulled out a small device, her last emergency beacon. She had one chance. Just one. She activated it, tossing it behind the cover where her teammate lay. A blinking red light began to pulse. Signal sent. Now all they had to do was survive. Stay down, she told him. What about you? He whispered. Emily didn't answer. Instead, she stood up again, stepping out into the open. Alone. Gunfire erupted instantly. She moved fast, firing as she advanced, forcing the enemy to take cover. Her movements were sharp, relentless, every shot buying another second, another breath, another chance. But they kept coming. A bullet grazed her arm. She flinched but didn't stop. Another struck her vest, knocking the air from her lungs. She stumbled back, gasping, but forced herself upright. Pain didn't matter. Nothing mattered except holding the line. The sound of helicopters grew louder now, closer. The enemy heard it too. Their movements changed, more aggressive, more desperate. "Finish them now," a voice shouted. They rushed forward, all at once. Emily's heart pounded. This was it, her final stand. She emptied her magazine, reloaded, fired again. Enemies fell, but not fast enough. They were too close, too many. Her vision blurred slightly, exhaustion creeping in. Her body was reaching its limit, but her will? Unbreakable. A sudden explosion rocked the ground nearby. Emily turned sharply. A missile strike hit the outer edge of the compound, sending flames into the sky. Then another, and another. Air support. They had arrived. The helicopters roared overhead now, their presence overwhelming. Spotlights cut through the darkness, locking onto enemy positions. Gunfire rained down from above. The tide turned instantly. Enemy soldiers scattered, shouting, trying to retreat, but it was too late. Emily dropped to one knee, breathing hard, her rifle hanging loosely in her hands. She looked back toward her teammate. Still alive, still breathing. They had made it. A rope dropped from one of the helicopters. "Go! Go!" a voice shouted from above. Emily forced herself up, ignoring the pain screaming through her body. She ran back to her teammate, lifting him again. "Come on, we're getting out of here," she said. He barely responded. She dragged him forward, step by step, toward the extraction point. Bullets still flew, but fewer now. The enemy was breaking. Finally. She reached the rope. 2 soldiers dropped down to assist. "Let's go," one of them shouted. They secured her teammate first, lifting him up toward the helicopter. Emily stood below, watching him rise. Safe. That's all that mattered. "Your turn," the soldier called. Emily grabbed the rope. But before she could move, a sudden burst of gunfire erupted from behind. One last enemy. Desperate. Hidden. The bullets hit the ground around her. One hit her leg. Emily gasped, dropping to one knee. Pain shot through her, but she refused to fall. Not now. Not here. She turned, raised her weapon, and fired. The enemy dropped. Silence followed. For the first time since the crash, silence. "Move!" the soldier shouted again. Emily grabbed the rope with both hands. Every muscle screamed in protest as she pulled herself up. Halfway there, her strength began to fade. Her grip slipped slightly. Below her, the battlefield blurred. The noise faded. Darkness crept in. Strong hands grabbed her, pulled her into the helicopter. She collapsed on the floor, gasping for air. Everything spun. Voices echoed around her, but distant, unclear. "Stay with us," someone said. She tried to respond, but the darkness took over. When Emily opened her eyes again, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Soft light filled the room. Clean. Safe. She blinked slowly, her vision adjusting. A hospital. Her body ached, wrapped in bandages. Machines beeped steadily beside her. For a moment, she just lay there, breathing. Alive. The door opened. A familiar face stepped in. Her teammate. Injured, but standing. He gave a small smile. "You made it," he said. Emily let out a slow breath. "Yeah," she whispered. There was a long silence. Not awkward, just heavy, full of everything they had been through. "The mission," he started. Emily closed her eyes briefly. She already knew. It had failed. The pilot wasn't recovered. The team didn't make it. Nothing had gone as planned. But they were alive, because she refused to quit. Days later, Emily stood outside the base, watching the horizon. The same kind of sky. Calm. Quiet. But now she knew the truth. Looks meant nothing. War changed everything. people, choices, lives. A voice called her name. She turned. Orders awaited. Another mission, another fight. Emily took a deep breath. Her body still carried the pain. Her mind still carried the memories. But her eyes, still strong, still unbreakable. The mission went wrong. The plan fell apart. Everything was against her. But in the end, she came back alive.